7. My constituency is Castries East. I've won 5 times. I topped the polls, I think, twice. But my biggest challenge is being able to give to people, to deliver to people what I know they want, but the resources are limited.
Right,
So
right.
we have limited resources, but we have many needs.
True.
And that's my biggest challenge, to be able to give to people what I know they deserve and what they need, but because of the limited resources, we have difficulty in doing that. I would say that's my biggest challenge.
Okay, okay. Okay, so let's piggyback to June 6th of 2016, when the SLP lost the general elections to UWP. I mean, from the campaigning and all of the events leading up to the elections, it somehow seemed that SLP were the ones in position to reclaim their seats. But as the hours went by and we listened to the results, for some it was very gut wrenching, and I mean for a lot they got the shocker of their lives that you all had lost the seat to the elections per se to the UWP 11-6. Can you perhaps explain or enlighten the people a bit as to what you think contributed to that loss?
Well, I'll tell you something. We were very surprised. The polls showed that we were winning, but we were very surprised. But I think what really happened is that people were promised many things.
Okay.
And I must tell you, things were tight. We just come from a situation where the country was in a kind of a spiral because the whole world was in problems at the time.
Right.
So the world situation impacted on St. Lucia. So things were rough. And St. Lucians were made many promises, like the eventual taking out of VAT.
Right.
That, there was a saying that money in your pockets. You understand?
Right, right.
So what happened is that St. Lucians believe that, listen to me, things are tight. The unemployment, particularly among young people, was very high,
Right.
particularly among young people.
I'll agree with that.
And they thought that, listen to me, let's try something else. And the then government made many promises of jobs, promises of investments, promises to remove VAT, promises to lower licenses, to lower taxes. And the people said, okay, things are tight. We cannot wait any longer. The electorate was very impatient. Although things had begun to improve, the electorate was impatient. Listen to me, let's give somebody else a chance.
Okay.
I think that was the main reason.
Okay.
That the country wanted something different because they thought that personally they would have benefited more if the government had changed.
Okay. So basically, just to really summarize all of what you're saying is that the election was lost to UWP based off the promises that UWP had made to those people.
Yes.
And having a frustrated bunch of individuals,
Particularly young people.
Who
were
unemployment.
Yeah.
I mean, you decided that. Sorry, what you're saying basically is that in the closing hours of the general elections, what decided the fate was the young people saying, you know what, we've given SLP 5 years to prove themselves. And we're frustrated. We were not getting anywhere. We're unemployed, still sitting on the block. And so we were going to the polls with the mindset that we're going to give
That things will
a
change.
new. We're going to take fresh 17 and give them an opportunity to see what they can do. Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Okay.
Because they did not fully realize that the economy was difficult and
Right.
things were improving. You see,
Okay.
things were improving, but it was taking time. And I
Right.
think they said, listen to me, all these promises, VAT reduction, no VAT, let's go and let's change.
So would you say that the SLP did not do enough during the campaigning season to reassure that the people, particularly the young ones, that we know that we are struggling. It is not only a St. Lucian thing. it is something that's affecting the entire world. Do you think that you all did enough to educate the people as it pertains to the struggles around the world? Which
No, I think our messaging was poor.
okay,
I think we assumed that people knew what was happening. We assumed that people would understand that we were in a crisis, a world crisis, and St. Lucia was not the only country.
okay,
We assumed that people would understand that we had reduced a deficit from 9% to 3.4%. We assumed that. We assumed that people would see what is happening and they would understand that things are improving.
okay,
But
okay.
probably our messaging wasn't what it ought to be. And I must tell you, because I tell you something, when you are in these positions, you believe people know what you are doing. But
Right.
really, they do not know.
True.
So you must always, you must constantly remind them. I'll tell you something. We built 23 bridges in 5 years. 23 bridges.
Okay.
We did. The country had been under strain because of Hurricane Thomas. We
Right.
did that. We rebuilt the country. We started 2 new hospitals, right? St. Jude Hospital and the Owen King Hospital.
Right.
All these things, right? But people did not think that it was enough
Right.
because they were promised money in their pockets.
Okay.
And that I think that's the basic problem.
Okay.
Money in your pocket, so regardless, I'll get money, I'll pay less VAT, so I'm changing.
So basically, at the end of the day, I will give you a fish rather than teach you how
Yeah.
to fish,
And
is
I
what
mean-
officially decided the elections in the closing hours.
I really believe that.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, I respect the will of the people.
Right.
And when we lost the election, I personally congratulated the Prime Minister. I
Okay.
told him, you've won, congrats.
Right.
You govern the country and do it for the majority of St. Lucians. But
True.
that doesn't mean that we must stay quiet. That doesn't mean
Right.
we must allow the country to go in a situation where there's vindictiveness and lack of accountability and lack of transparency.
True.
It means that the government must govern, but the opposition and the people must remain as watchdogs to ensure that the government does what is right and they do things for the majority of solutions.
True.
But we do not want solution to fail. As I've told you before, we're not obstructionists. We want the country to progress. And we're going to assist the government if we have to. We've said to the government, let's work together on crime.
Right.
We said that to the government because it's not in our vested interest for our country to fail. We really
True.
want our country
True.
to develop for the
True.
majority of all, for the benefit of all.
Right. I mean, since you brought up crime, I think we closed off the year with about approximately 60 murders.
The most in the history of St. Lucia.
Okay. Do you think that enough is being done to combat crime? And should the ruling government reach out to your party and ask for a joint effort in finding a solution to curbing crime? Do you think that you all will be open to working with them on that?
Well, I'll tell you something. We've made it public. We've said in public that we're going to work with the government for any meaningful effort to curb the crime situation in St. Lucia.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, our supporters are telling us that when you were in government, these guys blamed you for crime. Everything that happened, it was because of some minister, because
Right.
of Kenny Anthony, because of La Corbinier, because of me. But we do not believe that crime should ever be politicized.
True.
We think that crime is a problem that affects everyone, could affect you, could affect me.
Right.
So we stand willing to work with the government in any meaningful effort, underline the word meaningful, to curb the issue. But I'll also quickly add that it's not an easy problem to solve.
True.
Crime is multifaceted. I won't sit here and tell you, if we get into government, we'll solve all the crime is a problem
Right.
in St. Lucia. Nor will I ever make crime a political issue. But I think the government should retract the statement that they would make St. Lucia safer.
Right.
I think the government needs to retract, and the government needs to pledge, like us, that they will never politicize crime as they did in the last elections.
Right, right. I mean, just looking at or keeping abreast, with the news all over. I mean, crime is something that not any one particular person or 17 group of people can control.
And I agree.
So I mean, I agree when you said it should not be made a
political
political
issue
thing,
should not be,
and
yeah.
rather, I mean, all efforts, whether it be from the public, the opposition, even people out of St. Lucia who can weigh in and find ways to go ahead and find solutions. Maybe it be from from the little ones, from infant to find some ways to curb. I think that would be the best way that we have a chance in combating crime.
And we will support any meaningful initiative. The word is meaningful.
Right, right,
That's what we will support. Meaningful.
right. So the word victimization has somehow become a norm. I mean, it's been thrown around loosely, I would say, by either side of the party. I mean, if it's SLP in power, then we have our UWP supporters saying that they are being victimized, or vice versa. I mean, maybe I should. I'm gonna ask you. Who do you think has done the most victimizing, as it pertains to?
I'll tell you something. You must look at, you must deal with things with empirical evidence, right?
Right.
I know politics is emotion, but there must be empirical evidence. We have to do things empirically. What is the evidence?
Right, right.
Let's start with the evidence. There was a nice program, and I don't want to bring local politics into this business.
I mean,
but,
it's okay. We're
but
here to.
I want to deal with facts,
Right.
not emotion, not what you think, but with facts.
True.
There was a program called the NICE program, where over 1,000 people were employed. They
True.
did several things.
Right, right.
The most important part was they took care of the elderly. There was a home care program. They repaired, they fixed fields, they repaired fields, they maintained fields. Sorry, they worked as school assistants for the principals.
Okay.
Because the principals in the primary school, they had no assistants, so they had to answer
Okay.
the phone and do the typing. But they were
So
assistants.
it's like they were doing everything on their own.
The principals in primary schools.
Oh,
So
okay.
employees were a nice program, and they helped they helped the principals of the schools. They worked at the hospitals. They were hospital aides. They were health aides. They helped in the hospital, so the nurses could do more serious things while they took care of the patients, etc. They worked in places like the transport board to take care of licenses. They worked in the immigration department to help people to get their passports. They worked in all these areas of endeavor.
Okay.
When they were campaigning, the then government said, we're going to make the NICE program nicer. All right?
Okay.
Now, when people hear things are going to be nicer, that's human nature.
Right,
we
right,
aspire
right.
for better things. That's how we are
True,
as human
true,
beings.
true.
That's what we have to do. So we lost. Then the government stopped the NICE program. They dismissed every one of the workers. And when the opposition questioned that, one prominent government minister said, if you're crying, you've just begun to cry. Now, that is on the record. It's not something I am saying because I want to say bad things. It's on the record.
Right.
If you're crying, you've just begun to cry. That's one. And another minister said, it doesn't really matter because 90% of these people were supporters of the Labour Party.
Okay.
That's on the record. Now, you can tell me they didn't mean what they say. You can say, but
True.
that's on the record.
True. True.
Now, what you're saying is that is state-sponsored victimization.
Right.
And all these people were indeed sent home. And they started the home care program again, but only with selected people. So most of the people who were working on the home care program, and these people took care of elderly people, there was an affinity towards them and the elderly people. These people lost their jobs, and a new set of people took over. So that is documented. That I have empirical evidence for that. So that is not right. And I'm going to say something to you. The party that I lead, we will never engage in that kind of behavior, because we believe that people have a right to have their own political affiliation
True.
and live in a country. And because we live in a very small country, I'll tell you something also. The government sent home the cabinet secretary. Not sent home, they transferred him. And now that is the object of some case in court. The cabinet secretary is the head of the civil service. You understand? You see, what happens is that the government is in a rush in that they believe that once someone did not vote for them or did not support them, the person will destabilize them, which is
Okay.
which is not the case. So
True.
empirical evidence shows that this government has really done some harm to people who they perceived as supporters of the Labour Party.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is empirical. This is factual. Anything else is speculation. And I can
True.
go through
I'll
a
agree.
long list of this, but I don't want to bore you with that kind of thing. But fact is that victimization is bad and government should stop it because the country is too small to divide it in half.
I
Because
agree.
regardless of what happens, you'll always find people who are Labour and people who are UWP. So you
True.
can't divide the country. We need to nurture all the talent in the country. You cannot divide it
True.
like that. You know, we understand supporters will want to be treated as supporters, but that blatant division and that discrimination because you're not a supporter of the government must stop.
I agree. I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if the general elections are over, as one people, we should find common grounds to make our country better. And so, at the end of the day, the party you
But I'll
support
tell you
should not.
something which is even which is very bad and something which I intend to change if I become prime minister. Parliamentary representatives can do nothing in their constituencies if you are in opposition.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
I have represented my constituency for 20 years, since 1997. I've won 5 elections. As we speak, I cannot get a drain clean in my constituency.
Is that because of a lack of funding?
No. Because when you're in opposition, you just have absolutely no say in your constituency.
Oh,
Now, that's something we will stop when we
Okay.
get back in government. We have to stop it.
true.
Because people vote for representatives to do things for them.
True,
And literally,
true.
I can do nothing in my constituency because I'm not in government. I have to call a minister to clean a drain. There's
So let me-
absolutely no avenue when I get in the constituency.
So is that something that has been
It has
ongoing?
been
or-
it has been ongoing, but when we were in government, there was something called the Constituency Development Program, which was money from the Taiwanese that
Right.
specified should be used in the constituencies.
Okay.
And opposition constituencies got some form of assistance. But right now, there's nothing, literally nothing. Now, even if it is something that's practiced before, it's about time that we change it. And we're going to change it when you get back into government. You can't have a parliamentary rep. And that is why you see there's such that eagerness to become a minister and to get into government. Because if you're not in government, if your party is not in power, you can literally do nothing for your people. And what has happened is a trend has developed that the opposition candidates that you defeated in the elections is given all the resources
Oh,
and
okay.
is given all the resources. So then the opposition candidate, the person you defeated,
Right.
can do things that you can't do and you elected. You understand? So
Okay.
this is a new thing that entered the politics, which we will stop.
Okay. I mean, there are people who are listening who may not be aware or familiar with some of the accomplishments, and you said that you don't think that y'all did a good enough job as it pertains to educating the public about some of the things that y'all did, or the message was not clear enough. I mean, this is a good enough platform where we have people both here and back home who's listening right now. So can you go ahead and share with them some of the accomplishments that the St. Lucia Labour Party accomplished when they was in office back in 2011 to 2016?
Okay. Well, I could go to 1997, but I guess I guess that's going to be a bit too far. But I
Right,
want to
right.
make two notable things within 1997, between 1997 2006. Universal primary school education,
Uh-huh.
and I want to underline the word primary school education because you may not know that, but there was a time when children went to school for half of the day.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
Yes, you will not. They went to school to primary school for half of a day. They went from 1 to 4 or 5. So
Okay.
half of the day, these children were home unsupervised.
True.
And people have forgotten that. Universal primary school education, right? Then we did universal secondary school education. That'll be the first one to tell you it's not perfect.
True.
It needs to be refined. It even needs now to be looked into again, because you find what has happened is that there are kids who are in the secondary school, but they can't do the so-called academic subjects.
Right.
So they find themselves falling through the crack, through
For
the
the
cracks.
cracks.
But the fact is, every child can get a secondary school to go to. And again, I don't know if you remember that. There was a time when I went to school, or even after me, where 4,000 children wrote a common entrance examination. 4,000. And there was places for only 2,000. So 2,000 children were considered failures. How can a child 11 years be a failure?
True. I think the thing is, if they had failed common entrance,
You've got it.
they
They had nowhere to
did
go.
3, 4, 6 form something, and then after
Six
that, that was
standards. And
the
nowhere to
end.
go. Yeah,
That
that's
was
it.
the end
Yeah,
for them.
yeah. That was
Right.
before we had universal secondary school education. Now, how can an 11-year-old child be considered a failure?
True.
Can't happen.
Right.
So, and I'm going to tell you again, it needs refinement now, because things have changed, education has changed. But the fact is, every child in St. Lucia can get a secondary school to go to. That's a fact. It's not
Right.
perfect, but it's there because we built 5 new secondary schools
Okay.
to get children to school. If you look at playing facilities, when I grew up with Marshall Grounds and Minifida Park, right? Our government built a state-of-the-art stadium, which unfortunately now is a hospital,
Right.
and we built the Darren Sammy Grounds that introduced international cricket to St. Lucia in the field of sports, plus multipurpose courts, etc. So I'm speaking about sports and education. In terms of infrastructure, we were the ones who we completed the highway from Castries to Latok, the Millennium Highway. We completed that. John Compton started it, we completed it. But we also did the West Coast Road. We improved
Nice.
the Grosley Highway, and we were on the verge of improving it in that term, but we lost.
Okay.
In terms of infrastructure, we developed, we opened up Bon Séjour, opened up all these lands, all the lands by the stadium, opened up by us. The infrastructure, right? Now, in terms of investment, between in the years 2009, 97, 2006, when I was Minister of Tourism, I shouldn't put a plug for myself, but we had the largest amount of hotels being built in the country. Hotel investment was at its highest. In terms of commerce, we expanded the Bureau of Standards to ensure that local manufacturers had a solution standard mark where they could
Right.
compete in the international arena. We gave the most scholarships, particularly scholarships to Cuba. So children of regular people who couldn't afford, are doctors and engineers and engineers and doctors. If you
Right.
go to the hospital now, most of the doctors there are trained in Cuba. Most of them, because the initiative of having these scholarships from Cuba. Most of the
Was there also a nursing program?
there's a nursing program where 300 people well you well tuned. 300 people went to study nursing, and then
Right.
they learned Spanish. So they learned a foreign language. Then in the engineering program, engineering assistants, all the engineers in the Ministry of Infrastructure are Cuban trained. So people who never, because of their income status, would ever dream of being a doctor or an engineer or an economist, because of the Labour Party's scholarship program, because of the fact we gave study leave with pay
Right.
to as many people as possible. Because of that, they became doctors and engineers, etc. So that's between 1997 and 2006. In 2006, when there was Cricket World Cup, the economy grew by over 5%. 2006, there were all these projects on the ground, and we grew by 5% in 2006. And again, that is empirical evidence. It's not me saying it. Something you can check the CDB records. You can check the ECCB. You'll find that the country grew by over 5%.
Right. Right. So the evidence is
The
there
evidence
to
is
support
there.
what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying.
Between 2006 and 2011, there was the worldwide recession, United States everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
When he came back in the government, we found a country that was on the verge of going to the IMF. The deficit on current accounts was over 8%, nearly 9%. You may know that Greece went to the IMF with a deficit of less than 9%.
Right.
We were at 9%. Unemployment was about 25%. Among young people, some people believe it was 50%. That was the situation in 2011. 2011, there was no investment, no new hotels were built in St. Lucia between 2006 and 2011. And that is fact. I'm not saying to you it's because of the government. I'm stating facts.
Right.
So when we came back in 2016, that is what we found.
Okay.
We found a country where there had been a serious struggle when Sir John Compton died. There was a struggle for leadership. You're aware
Right.
of that?
Yes. Yes.
Right. And we found that
But I
country.
think there was what, something called the
The-
five something.
No,
no.
the seven.
It was 7.
I think it was something seven. I can't recall. At
Yeah,
this
I know.
point.
I know there was a bit of controversy
Yeah.
going on, and it's like
Leadership, yeah.
the party was then
It
either
was split around the
divided in
center.
two or
Yes.
yeah.
And to his credit, King kept it together. You understand? And they went through 2016. So when it came to 2016, that's what we inherited. So we found a country where the current account deficit was high, the GDP ratio was high, unemployment was high. It still is high.
Okay.
It's got to be lower, we admit, but that's the fact that it was high. When we left in 2016, we had reduced that current account deficit to about 3.4%. Right? But we had to do that. We had to implement some harsh measures.
True.
And VAT was one of these measures. We had VAT at 15%. But because of the imposition of VAT, we could have reduced that current account deficit to 3.4%. We increased licenses. But do you know, you'll be surprised to know that it still costs less than $1 a day to drive on the roads in St. Lucia with a car. I want you to listen to carefully what I'm saying because I mean, you live here and you pay the toll, etc.
Right.
In St. Lucia, it costs less than $1 a day
Less than
to
a
drive
dollar.
a motor car in St. Lucia. Less than $1 a day. Right? And that is after the increase.
Okay.
Right?
After the VAT increase.
No, after that and after increase in licenses.
Okay.
We had increased car license.
Right.
Car
Right. Yeah.
licenses for what do you call road taxes. Right? But it still costs less than $1 a day to drive a car in St. Lucia. Right? So we took some measures which were harsh. Right? Investment had just begun to come back. If you come to St. Lucia now, you see there's a 500-room hotel called the Royalton Hotel.
I think I'm somewhat familiar with.
Yes,
Royalton.
that's to the extreme north of the country. It's in I think it was a hotel. It was the old not Holiday Inn. It was a hotel that was developed by some Canadian investors. It's got
Okay.
500 rooms now. That came under our watch, and unfortunately, it got opened by this government.
Okay.
There is a Harbour Club Hotel, which is lower down near the Pope site.
Okay.
When last have you been in St. Lucia? It's a long time, right?
Not that long. No.
Like what?
Maybe a couple of years.
That's too long, right?
No, trust,
So-
it's not long. Even if I see a couple of years, it's not that many years. No.
Okay, all right. So so the investment had begun to return, right? So the country was on the verge of coming from a recession
Okay.
into slow growth and into more sustainable growth. That's what was inherited in 2016.
As
And that's
we-
empirical, it's a fact.
Okay. As we on the subject of hotels, I know there was a hotel that was supposed to have been built somewhere in Monterey-Port. After you leave Bordelais, going
Prale.
down.
So
Oh, okay.
Prale.
What became of this hotel?
That was a failed investment,
Okay.
and it was very sad. Again, that is why we must be so careful when we get involved in foreign direct investment with people that we don't know.
True.
And hence the reason why we are sounding caution about the DSH program, the DSH project. Hence the reason. Because the Prale was fantastic ideas. It came under us.
Yes.
We gave all the incentives they asked for, and it has become the failed investment. That's why we must be very careful as a government and as a country when we are leasing or we are giving up large areas of land to foreign investors, hopefully for them to build hotels, etc. We have to do all the due diligence. We have to be careful because St. Lucia only has X amount of land. Land is
Right,
not an
true.
infinite a resource. We must be very careful what we do of our lands. And here's our point of departure as far as the DSH program is concerned.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to jump into DSH right now. I'm going to just you mentioned that y'all did quite a bit as it pertains to infrastructure, and one of the things I think that a lot of people would want to know is about St. Jude's. I mean, I think it was back in, correct me if I'm wrong, it is about 9 years since
St. Jude
the
started
unfortunate
2010.
right, since the unfortunate incident with St. Jude's. I think it was approximately about a
August.
year and a half after the currently ruling UWP was still in office. And then they lost the elections to y'all, so y'all had an entire 5 years. But I mean, especially being that the then ruling Labour Party, the Prime Minister was representing the people of the South. I mean, to this very day, people would have thought that you would have come and completed the hospital, the construction, and you also talked about Owen King. But I don't think any of those hospitals are currently in operations as they should. And can you explain to the people, I mean, there was quite a bit of funds that was either collected or monies donated. There were also items that were sent to St. Lucia in hopes of facilitating the hospital and seeing that it's up and running, because I mean, God forbid that something drastic was to happen, especially in the South, and the people are without a hospital right now. So can you educate the public and explain to the people what are some of the challenges that you all faced as it pertains to the construction, and why is it that to these days the people still do not have a hospital in the South?
Okay, sure. First of all, I want to tell you that we are very concerned about the St. Jude Hospital, but we need to get a few facts straight about
Okay.
the St. Jude Hospital.
True.
When the St. Jude Hospital fire destroyed it, and some people lost their lives, God bless their souls.
May they rest in peace.
Yes. Everyone was panicking. Everyone, the government at the time, had to find something to do, and the people were moved to the
Stadium.
At that time, must understand that was an unforeseen circumstance.
True, right.
There was no money to build a new hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Not like the Owen King Hospital, the Owen King EU Hospital, where there was money. There was a line of finance to build the Owen King Hospital.
Okay.
It was done by the EU. So there was a line of finance.
Okay.
I want you to make the distinction, and let's go through it slowly.
Sure, no problem.
St. Jude Hospital, there was no money. It wasn't on the cards at all. That was an unforeseen circumstance.
True, right.
The people were moved to the stadium. At the time, the thinking was, let us repair what is left from the burnt out structure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's repair it.
Right.
So it was cleaned up, and the thinking was we're going to repair it. At that point, people began to send money in, and I want to thank all of those in the United States who helped, collected funds, sent money for the reconstruction of St. Jude's. Then a decision was taken that, listen, it doesn't make any sense to repair what's there. Let us build a new hospital on a new site.
Mm-hmm.
That decision was taken, but after it was realized that, listen to me, It'll cost too much money to build a new hospital on a new site. So
Right.
let's go back and repair what's there.
Mm-hmm.
So when we came into government, we found the United Workers' Party repairing what was there.
Okay.
Right? What
So repair works had already commenced on
on the United Workers' Party?
United Workers
Yes.
Party.
But with no money, like is the situation up to now.
Okay.
So what happened is that we continued, and I want us to go through that slowly,
Sure.
so that we can go through the steps, because there's been a lot of emotion and misinformation. And let me tell you, I think that the people of the South need a new hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I think the doctors and nurses and patients are suffering at the stadium, and we need to change it. I agree.
I concur.
So there was no money for the hospital. I want to repeat that, because that is the central point. We continued working on the hospital. We never stopped work on the hospital, because friendly governments were helping, solutions were helping from abroad, but the footprint of the hospital expanded.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of a repair now, you find new things are going.
Right.
You understand? Folks are getting excited, so new things are happening.
True.
Things are not adequate, so they're expanding, getting long. So the footprint is increasing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no money.
Right.
We went to Taiwan, and we got a loan of 20 million US dollars from Taiwan, a concessionary loan
Okay.
to put into the hospital. When we had left government, $10 million from that money had been spent. So there's a loan of, there's 10 million US dollars that can be accessed.
Okay.
Other countries helped. Mexico built something, etc. But the point is, we never stopped construction of the hospital. When the United Workers' Party got into government, there was a whole hue and cry about why didn't we finish the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
We could not, because we didn't have money.
Okay.
But we never stopped.
Right.
But there's something that I don't think many people have understood, or many people know. There is a document called an exit report on St. Jude Hospital, where the engineers and the people involved wrote a document stating why the hospital wasn't completed and what has to be done to complete the hospital.
Okay.
That document was kept secret until a talk show host revealed it. So all the union cried about electrical wires, about things that there are no windows, and all this emotion that was about the place. The police were used to go into people's houses to get what it says hospital material, etc. All these things were in a document.
Okay.
What had to be done to complete the hospital was in a document prepared by the engineers and the consultants who had worked there for the last 7 years. And that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
These people were fired and never spoken to. So where you complain about that hasn't been done, you accuse people of corruption, and the document that says what had not been done, why it had not been done, and what ought to happen for it to finish, you conceal it.
Okay.
A document prepared by engineers who worked there for the last 7 years and consultants.
So they would be knowledgeable.
Of course. Instead of doing that, you order an audit that costs $1 million. Up to this day, the public have not been told the contents of that audit. Up to as I speak to you. It leaked again. You know, there are whistleblowers, so it leaked. I mean,
Right.
if documents leak from the Congress, much the solution. So it leaked, right? So the public has an idea what was there. But up to today, the government has not tabled that document in Parliament. Parliamentarians do not know what's there. But all you hear is accusations. This one will be arrested. And the Prime Minister last spoke about forensic, all sorts of things. But the document, 2 documents. One, the handover report, which was prepared by the engineers and the consultants who worked on the project for the last 6 or 7 years, has never been revealed to the public from official circles, nor the report of the $1 million audit has still not been revealed to the public from official circles.
Okay. So it was stated that as it stands, it makes no sense to continue work on the hospital.
Why?
To the extent something has to do with the size of the doors and
That's what I'm saying to you. All that is in the
So
handover
you're
report.
saying this is not
That's
the
not
case.
true. It's in a report, Lady T. It's in a report. You see, and that is a strange thing. And that's why you have to question the motives. All that is in a report. A report. First of all, there was a thing that the hostel has no windows. The report said, the report said, and it's a pity I don't have it. We'll have a time to go for the report because you would see all the things that was said about that the bad in the hospital is in the report by the engineers and the consultants.
Okay.
You understand? So you have to question yourself, why is it happening? Why? And in the meantime, St. Louis Hospital continues, no work done. Now, if you know anything about construction, you would know when you close a building, it deteriorates.
Okay.
So we don't know
True.
what's happening. Exactly. Now, but you find people say, okay, the question is, why didn't you finish the hospital? The answer is simple. We had no money. We did it with grant funds. And when we did get a loan to finish the hospital, we were out of government. The answer is simple.
Okay. So the problem back in 11 to 16 was that you all did not have the
A dedicated
financial
line of
finance
to
in
construct
order
the
to
hospital.
continue
Yes.
the hospital.
No, we
What-
continued
to
to complete it.
to complete it.
Yes.
When y'all did eventually got a loan, you said from the
20
Taiwanese,
we lost the election. We lost
y'all
the government.
lost the election. So the money is
$10 million
in an
is
account
there.
is an account somewhere. I would
Well,
assume.
I'll tell you what. The way these things happen, the money comes in tranches. So we got the first tranche of $10 million, and you have to apply for the second tranche.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was
the
that
a
applied
$20 million
for?
loan had been approved by the Taiwanese.
So was the additional 10 million applied for?
I have no idea.
Oh, so you would not know.
These are not things that the government discusses with the opposition.
Okay. So, but isn't there ways for y'all to find out if that?
Well, boy, the only way we can find out is through whistleblowers. And one would have expected, things like and that is the kind of governance that I want to introduce in St. Lucia when you get back in the government. Things like hospitals, things that impact directly on people's welfare. Because if you can afford it, when you get sick, you can fly and go to Martinique or go to Miami, etc. But the majority of people in St. Lucia cannot do that. So one would expect something like that. The government would call the opposition in the conference. Listen to me. Let's talk about St. Jude's, right? First, and also, there are the Prime Minister, Honorable Alva Baptiste, Honorable Moses Jabatis. All of them represent the constituencies where the hospital is located.
Right.
So one would have thought that there'd be some dialogue, but that doesn't happen. You hear everything like everybody in the streets. So you hear the accusations, you hear nobody asked for any explanation. And even though it happened before, it's something that I want to change. I want to develop a culture of dialogue, a culture of consultation, a culture where the opposition gets intimately involved in affairs of the country. Politics is always politics.
True.
I'm not telling you we'll have a system where there's no politics. Is politics. Politics has its own morality. It has its own dealings. But there are certain key things like health, particularly something like St. Jude's. That's the only hospital in the south. Recently, there was a fire in the Soufrière Hospital.
Right.
Problems. Soufrière also feeds St. Jude's.
Right.
Something like that should not be made a political football. It should be discussed, and we shouldn't try to score points on an issue like that. If it is done before, it's wrong, and if it's done now, it's still wrong. And when people vote for governments, they don't vote for governments to continue what is wrong.
True.
They vote for governments to improve situations. So to make the point, you did it too. It's
Right.
not a valid point.
It's
You-
like tit for tat.
Right, it's not a valid point. And that's something I want to change when we get into government.
True. So you mentioned that there is the handover document and the other report
The
that
audit report,
was
commissioned by this government.
and that's information I think that Is that information that's accessible to the public?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's, they're still secret. They only came
Oh,
out
so it's all
through,
kept a secret.
through whistleblowers.
Oh,
All you have is accusations.
so if how or what would be the way to make this transparent? I mean, is there some law that states?
No, there's not.
No, there
There's
isn't.
not. No.
So I guess
It was paid by taxpayers' money, and that is the level of accountability and transparency that we're speaking about. You have two documents. The public only knows what's there because of whistleblowers and because of rumor and talk show hosts who have disclosed what's there. But you do nothing about it, and you just accuse people. Just accusations, accusations, accusations. You understand? And that is the problem we have.
okay. So I mean, as it pertains to transparency and accountability, do you think that enough is being done in that aspect? I mean, there are a lot of things that happened back under the SLP administration, and I think there are things that continues to happen where the public does not know or can only go off what he say and they say. So I mean, you said that one of the things you want to do is to change the tit for tat.
To make the country more transparent, to improve the level of governance.
Okay.
The country's got to go to a higher level of governance, of accountability, of transparency. It's got to be a country where 40% of the people do not feel alienated because the government is out of power.
True.
I'll give you an example. Look at it's the last thing I heard. There are about 30,000 solutions in New York, in the United States. Some people say more.
Maybe.
Yeah, some people say more actually. Some
Yeah.
people think it's more like 60,000. Now, here's a rich source of money, because you may not know, or I'm sure you know, that Jamaica, one of Jamaica's largest sources of foreign exchange comes from something called remittances from abroad. Right?
Okay.
Money from the US, from England that goes to Jamaica. There are communities in St. Lucia that survive only, or 90%, from remittances from abroad. Because in the kind of families we have in St. Lucia and Jamaica, when you're abroad, you send something for your auntie
Right.
and your godchild,
True.
you know, and your nenen and
Your
things like that.
grandmother.
Your grandmother. You must. It's your duty. You think it's your duty, right? Now, here's a government that is giving 1,000 acres of land to one man. Now, I want to be clear that the Labour Party is not against foreign direct investments.
Okay.
When the developer on the DSH program spoke to us first, he spoke to the Labour Party first when we were in government.
Right.
But the Prime Minister at the time thought that, listen to me, that is too. I mean, he could have said it and probably won the election. He could have said, we'll have an investment for $2.5 billion and the whole South will become the Pearl of the Caribbean. He could have said so.
True.
But at that point, we thought, listen to me, this thing is too big. It's 1,000 acres of land. And it wasn't 1,000 acres of land that the developer wanted to buy, you know. And then you see, I want to make these things clear because I want, when there is a response, that the response will be as accurate as it ought to be. That wasn't a developer that said, listen to me, I want to buy 1,000 acres of land. Then the market value, the market forces would come to play. Land in that area, by the beach, by Sandy Beach, that area costs probably about $50 a square foot. That's prime real estate. So nobody wants to buy it. Buy it. That was land that was owned by the government through NDC, that was handed over to a developer for between 20 and 99 years. So you've given that swath of land to one man to develop it. Now, what the Labour Party is saying, listen to me, we are not against any development. But face it, instead of giving a guy 1,000 acres, give him 20, let him develop it. Give him another 20, let him develop it. But you don't bequeath to him 1,000 acres in one go. You
True.
can't. You should not.
Agree.
Now, you say the argument is, oh, the land is there, is not doing nothing, which again is a futile argument. Land is not an infinite thing. What about the 40,000 people here? Supposing they want to come back to St. Lucia, where
Right.
will you put them?
Right.
What about your children, your grandchildren? So even though land today may not be doing anything, in 20 years it's changed. So to the argument that the land is idle, land can never be idle. Land is idle at a particular point in time. So you have this massive project, and up to this day, there has not been a consultation with the opposition. I wrote the prime minister, and I'm not dealing with my dirty linen in public. I'm speaking facts to St. Lucians who want to know what's happening in the country. I wrote the prime minister. He hasn't even responded to my letter to say yes, I acknowledge receipt of your letter. I wrote him to ask him, listen to me. People have concerns about what's happening with the 1,000 acres of land. They have concerns.
True.
There's an agreement which you did not put in public. Again, it was leaked.
So okay,
Yes.
so you're saying that the information about the DSH was leaked to the public.
The agreement.
The agreement.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a proposal that came about with, I guess it was first put through
The new
to SLP, but the then Prime Minister, along with his cabinet of 16 members,
No, it is not. The cabinet is not 6. The cabinet was, I think, 10.
10.
10 or 9. The
Okay.
cabinet. The cabinet.
Right, right,
There were
right.
11 elected members. But
True.
the cabinet was having
Okay.
10.
So y'all, I mean, obviously, as you stated, y'all were not for the sale of so much land.
No. Here's what we said. We said, listen to me. Let's discuss it. Because there are sensitive issues. I'll give an example. The Bossejou agricultural farm must be removed.
Okay.
The meat processing plant must be removed.
Okay.
Farmers who make their livelihoods on the land must be removed. They are sensitive issues. There's something called the equine disease free zone, which says that if you want to bring horses of a particular caliber, they can't be any animals, etc. 3 kilometers near the stables where you have them.
All right.
It's
okay.
called the equine disease free zone. There are serious issues that need to be discussed. You understand? So we are saying, listen to me. You came with your plans. Let's talk about it. Let's bring in the farmers. Let's bring in the environmentalists. Let's bring in the opposition. Let's bring in the landowners. Let's bring in the business owners, and let's discuss it. All we see is plans. All we see is drawings.
So that was your
That was our proposal.
that was your proposal to
Yes.
them to bring in the opposition and
Let's-
some of the persons who would probably be affected.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, but it hasn't happened. You understand? So, that is so. So what's happening now is that we find ourselves in a situation where only what we hear from the government is plans. Every day they come in for different set of plans, computer drawings of good buildings. We hear about marinas. We hear about the airport being taken over. We hear all about these things, right? So all we're saying is let's consult and let's talk about it.
I mean, I would think that this would have definitely been the way to go. I mean, if it's going to affect all of those persons,
will.
I mean, by a right, the decision, they should have had a say in terms of the decision.
At least a discussion.
True. I guess we sort of pressed for time,
Yes, because
so
we have this town hall meeting at 6 o'clock. I don't know
Okay,
how far I
okay.
am from. How far I am from here? But
I don't. It's not that far. Not that far. Yeah, it's not far from here.
right.
So I'll ask about the Citizens by Investment program.
Good.
I mean, there are some contentious policies
Very contentious.
which we would like to explore. what is the current issue with the CIP under the UWP that is concerning to the country?
Okay, first of all, the CIP, when the CIP has been initiated, we called in the opposition.
Okay.
There was a task force that included a member of the opposition. The leader of the opposition was written to say to me, why don't you appoint someone to come, let's talk about the CIP? Because passports are very emotional. Your passport is, you see your passport as something that people cherish their passports, they hide it.
True.
When your parents get a passport on the bed, on the mattress. So we said there are scores of people in the world who want a second passport. So when we did the CIP, we were the last to implement the CIP. We said, let the passports be a tool for investment.
Okay.
So we said, listen to me, we're only going to issue 500 passports per year. To get a passport, you must have a net worth of at least $3 million US, and your minimum investment must be 300,000 US dollars. That
Okay.
were the requirements on which you got a passport. So that our passport would be a prestigious thing, and our passport will not be something that is dealt with willy-nilly, something you just sell and trade in, because that is your people's birthright, their passports. The government, without consultation, remember, when we implemented the CIP, we involved the opposition in the committee that decided. They prepared a report, and the report went to Parliament, Cabinet first, and Parliament for acceptance. They changed it, and we heard it on the radio like anybody else. In fact, it was announced by someone who was not even in the government that we should have changed the CIP program.
Okay.
Okay? And the government wants to just accept it. Here you are. So what happens now is that anybody with 100,000 US dollars who goes through their due diligence can get a passport. So that's the value of your passport now, 100,000 US dollars. You understand? So we oppose it. We think that the CIP is a program that must remain a selective program. It must be at the highest levels of due diligence, etc. When we believe that unless that happens, the government, we can't support the CIP in its present form.
Okay. I'm not sure if you're able to take any questions because of the fact that we're pressed for
We
time.
have to leave, but
But my last question to you would be, what is the SLP's view of the current UWP government and its policies?
we think that the government has lost many, many opportunities to advance the country. We think the government hasn't settled. They haven't accepted the fact that they are in government, and the opposition will talk and the opposition will exist. I don't think they've understood that the opposition will never disappear. The thinking of that you can crush opposition, it never happened. There's opposition in North Korea, much as in St. Lucia. So you can never crush the opposition. So to believe you'll crush it, that will not happen. I think the government has lost many opportunities. I think the government is starting from the beginning, where there was already a start. The Grosley Highway, the Hiwanora Airport development, the Viewford Administrative Building, the Suffrage Square. All these projects were ongoing. The government stopped them. The LED program. So the government wasted a lot of opportunity. So we find ourselves starting back things that could have been advanced.
Okay.
So I think the government wasted opportunity. I think that the government should have built on what they found, and the country would have benefited more.
Okay. I said that was the last question, but let me just ask you this one last question. As it pertains to unemployment, I mean, this is a very delicate subject because, I mean, a lot of the young people, I mean, going back earlier when you stated that this is one of the primary reasons why you all lost the general elections, people were frustrated. I think the Prime Minister said that there has been a decrease in unemployment and the economy has somewhat picked up a bit. What do you have to say
I'll
to
tell you
that?
what. If there's a decrease in employment, I'll be the happiest person out. Because every day, people come to my constituency, I want a job. Get a job for me, please. So every day. Why are you saying the opposition would not want employment to come down?
True.
We would have loved employment. In fact, we're striving for full employment. But fact is, unemployment is still too high. Fact is, there are still too many young people out of work. And fact is, we have to do something because, in spite of the Prime Minister's pronouncements, unemployment is very high, and we have to find ways and means of engaging our young people to reduce the level of unemployment in the country. Even though it's going down, if it's going down, I'll be very happy. I'll be very happy about that if it's going down, but I think it's too high, and we have to take measures to further reduce the level of unemployment in the country.
Okay. So, I mean, there you have it, people. I want to thank you again, Mr. Philip J. Pierre, for coming through, for giving us your time. I do hope that our viewers, all 124 of you, were able to take in some of what the minister said, and y'all are able to look at what y'all know and come to a viable solution as to whether or what, how do we move forward, you know? So again, the agenda here was for us to understand from the opposition side of things how they believe that we can move the country forward and some of the struggles that we face and why certain things were not done under the SLP administration. So again, on behalf of Watch Radio NYC, it was a pleasure having you. I wish you all the best as the opposition leader. Whatever you decide to endeavor in, be it political or otherwise, I wish you nothing but the best. And again, I speak on behalf of the people of St. Lucia. I want to thank you for coming through. It was greatly appreciated, your time and everything here today. So, you want to take at least one call?
Well, I want to really thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. I wish you could have some more time. You know, I have a meeting at 6.
I understand that.
And
We pressed for time.
but I'm very happy to be here. And I want to make it clear. The opposition does not want St. Lucia not to do well. The opposition wants St. Lucia to prosper. The opposition wants the best for St. Lucia. The opposition wants all our people to lead a life of fulfillment.
True.
That's what we want for ourselves. But that doesn't mean that we must remain quiet.
True.
That doesn't mean we must allow a lack of accountability or lack of transparency. That doesn't mean we must allow any government. And that is a duty that all citizens have, to be watchdogs for the people for all governments. So I really want to thank you for having me, and I want to reiterate that we are not on a path of destroying St. Lucia. We are on a path of building St. Lucia, but that's our point of view, and we believe many things are happening that are not sound, and we're going to talk about it. It's our job because 37,000 St. Lucians voted for us to do exactly what we're doing. But we're not on a path of destabilization, neither on a path of wanting destruction for our country. And I want to thank you very much. I want to thank everyone here for having me. I mean, I wish I can come back at some point if you do want me to come. But I want to thank you very much for being here.
I mean, of course. I mean, there is no way we could decline a sit down with the minister of the opposition. So, I mean, I'm extending the invitation on behalf of Watch Radio. You are more than welcome to job by whenever
you guys
you're around.
are doing a very good job to keep people informed, and I'm very proud of St. Lucians. Tout gens Saint Lucie, mais bien content pour ça y aura fait ici là et n'a souhaité tout monde en New York, en Saint Lucie, nous aimer ça qu'a fait pour Jean Saint Lucie. On chaque monde Saint Lucie, yo vle toute manière yo ka vivre. C'est l'argent qui va venir sur autres en New York.
OK.
Et nous aimer ça et nous veut choisir les autres en bon l'année parce que l'année a juste commencé.
Oui.
Toujours ni Saint-Lucie en l'idée ou aimer Saint-Lucie parce que nous c'est Jean Saint-Lucie nous aimons pays nous.
Ma'am, I will try my little hands at my Creole, you know. So nous very merci pour venir ici à aujourd'hui. Nous apprécier temps ou spend nous aujourd'hui. I mean, it was a pleasure. I think the viewers, a lot of them are grateful for this discourse. I mean, viewers, there you have it. At the end of the day, we're going to say, people are going to say what they have to say. They're going to lie.
And we believe in free speech. Eh?
True.
We live in a democracy. Everybody can be for. You must have free speech. You
Right,
must have
right.
discourse, dialogue, and etc.
I mean, there is information that is out there where you, the viewers, have the right to educate yourself. There are certain things that y'all are able to get. And so, again, we thank you for this opportunity. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
And I wish you a great day also.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
This one is another one. Hello. Just come for a visit, a visit, a visit, a visit, a visit, a visit, a visit. Just come.